That gasp the moment cold water hits your chest? That's not toughness. That's your blood pressure spiking live. 2 studies, 2 opposite answers, both right. In 2024, a research team at the University of Florida measured what happens to your brain when you step into ice water. They found a 530% spike in noradrenaline. That's the alertness hormone. Some wellness influencers read that number and decided cold plunges were basically medicine. Harvard Health reviewed the same year of research and added a critical safety note that didn't make the headlines. Not for everyone, for older adults. For anyone with high blood pressure, a heart condition, diabetes, or poor circulation, the cold shock itself can be a problem. So who is right? Here's what changed my mind on this. It depends on a single number, and most people over 60 have never checked it. Stay with me, because the difference between a useful tool and a hospital visit is sitting in your medicine cabinet. Let's start with the Florida study because the number is what pulled everyone in. 33 adults. 5-minute dip in water, cold enough to make you gasp. Researchers measured a 530% jump in noradrenaline, a 250% jump in dopamine, and what they called a slight bump in metabolic rate. These are not small numbers. Noradrenaline at that level is the same chemical your body dumps when it thinks you're in danger. It's why you feel electric after a cold plunge. It's why some people swear by them for focus. The dopamine spike is real too. That 250% is part of the mood lift people describe. The Florida team, writing in 2024, listed possible downstream benefits: reduced inflammation, improved insulin sensitivity, neuroprotective effects in animal models. None of these are made up. The mechanism is plausible. The early numbers are genuinely interesting. So why does Harvard say, be careful? Because the same chemicals that make you feel alert also do something else. They squeeze your blood vessels. They raise your blood pressure. The cold shock response, that gasp, that spike in heart rate, is a real cardiovascular event. Harvard's 2024 review of cold water immersion made the contraindication explicit. Anyone with a heart condition, high blood pressure, diabetes, or poor circulation should check with a doctor first. Not as a polite footnote, as a primary safety note. And that's where the 2 studies actually meet. The Florida team wasn't studying people over 60 with heart conditions. They were studying healthy adults in a controlled dip. The Harvard reviewers weren't saying cold plunges don't work. They were saying the population most drawn to longevity content, older adults, often on blood pressure medication, is also the population most at risk from the cold shock response. So here's the variable: your blood pressure, not as a number you mention at the doctor's office, as a decision-making input before you get in a cold tub. Let me walk you through what actually happens in your body during a cold plunge and where the danger window sits. The first 30 seconds are where the cold shock response lives. Your sympathetic nervous system fires. Heart rate climbs. Blood pressure climbs with it. For a healthy adult, this spike is brief and the body settles. For someone whose baseline blood pressure is already elevated, or who is on medication that affects vascular tone, that same spike can trigger an arrhythmia. That's not a theory. That's the mechanism Harvard flagged. Now, the safe entry point. If you are over 60, or you take blood pressure medication, or you have any of the conditions Harvard listed, the responsible path is the gradual one. End your normal shower with 3 to 5 minutes of cold. Do that for 2 or 3 weeks. Let your nervous system adapt. The Florida numbers, the 530%, the 250%, those were measured in cold-adapted regulars, not first-timers. The reason their heart rate and blood pressure recovered cleanly is that they had built the response over time. A second safety layer, and this one is underused. Check your blood pressure before you get in. The Florida study participants had blood pressures taken in a clinical setting. The Harvard reviewers are writing for a population that often doesn't. If your systolic is over 140 or you feel off in any way that morning, skip the plunge. The 530% spike on top of a 145 baseline is a different risk profile than the same spike on a 118 baseline. The number on the cuff is the variable. Use it. Now let me address the inversion. If your blood pressure runs low, and many people over 60, especially women, have low normal readings, the calculus changes again. The cold shock response for you is less dangerous, and the cognitive lift from the noradrenaline spike is more available. The Huberman Lab newsletter, cited in the Florida write-up, recommends starting at 60 degrees Fahrenheit and working down, with sessions of 1 to 5 minutes 2 to 4 times a week. That's a reasonable target for a low baseline adult. It's not a reasonable target for an at-risk adult starting cold. This is the part of the conversation most longevity content skips. Cold plunges are not a universal tool, they are a conditional tool. The condition is your cardiovascular baseline. If you don't know your baseline, you don't know whether the tool is right for you. And the population most likely to skip that step is the one most likely to need it. Here's the framework I'd actually use. First, know your blood pressure, not a guess. A real reading taken at home over a few days. Second, if you are over 60 or on any cardiovascular medication, get a doctor's sign-off before you start. Not a phone call disclaimer, a real conversation. Third, if you get the green light, start with cold showers, not plunges. 3 to 5 minutes at the end of your normal shower, daily, for 2 to 3 weeks. Fourth, if and only if you feel stable, move to a tub, keep the temperature above 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and cap your sessions at 1 to 3 minutes. Fifth, recheck your blood pressure weekly for the first month. If at any point a session leaves you feeling dizzy, short of breath, or with chest tightness, you stop. Not next time, that time. And you check in with a clinician. The cold shock response is not a sign of a good workout. It is a stress event. The point of the practice is that you adapt to it. The point is not to white-knuckle through it. I want to come back to that opening. 2 studies, 2 opposite answers. Both right. The Florida team found a real, measurable, dramatic effect. Harvard flagged a real, measurable, dramatic risk. The answer for you lives in the space between those 2 findings. And that space is your own body. Your blood pressure, your medication list, your doctor's read on your cardiovascular system. Cold plunges can be a useful tool. They are not a free upgrade. Treat them like you would treat a new exercise program. Build up, check in, adapt. The people who get the longevity benefit from cold exposure are the people who built the practice slowly enough that their body met it halfway. That's the truth after 60, not the influencer version, not the fear version. The version where you know your number, you check with your doctor, and you build the practice that your specific body can actually use. If this helped you think through the cold plunge question more clearly, subscribe. We do this every week. Take the study, drop the hype, and walk you through what it actually means for someone over 60. I'll see you in the next one.